Alone. Season 5 shocks with its arrival, offering a new experience and a contest among returning experts. Who will seize this second chance and win the championship? The show begins on day 1 with Sam, the only contestant from Season 1. He survived 55 days previously, withdrawing due to missing his family. After that season, he quit his job to become an outdoor expert, learning more skills. With another chance at the $500,000 prize, Sam is determined to give his all. Like before, he responds to wolf howls with his own. Next, Nicole from Season 2, who survived 56 days before leaving due to hunger, lands on a barren mountain with no trees and mostly grassy ground. Her first task is to build a temporary shelter to survive the night. She is particularly wary of the Asian pit viper, a deadly snake more likely encountered here than the fierce beasts. The third contestant, Carlin, a tough survivor of 86 days in Patagonia, spent 2 weeks recovering in a hospital. Aware of the importance of food, she quickly catches 3 fish in the Mongolian rivers, a stark contrast to the 6 fish over her entire previous stay in Patagonia. Confident in her abilities, she enjoys a satisfying fish dinner. On the second day, Carlin continues to fish to gather food for the energy-consuming task of building a shelter later. Though successful, she faces a mishap when a fish escapes the hook and, while trying to catch it, the hook deeply embeds into her hand, scraping muscle and proving difficult to remove. Regretting her reflex, Carlin searches for herbs like yarrow to stop the bleeding and plantain for its antibacterial properties. Despite numerous attempts, she cannot remove the deeply embedded hook with barbs, a painful reminder of the challenges faced in the wilderness. Another day has passed, and the fish hook remains embedded in Carlin's hand for over 20 hours with no improvement. The wound has swollen, and now any movement of her right hand causes pain. Carlin feels helpless and deeply regrets her situation. Despite having ample food and not being in a state of hunger, she persisted in pursuing more food. Perhaps her previous forced withdrawal due to a medical checkup left her feeling insecure. Now, with an infected wound, she has no chance to compete for the championship. Carlin, the third contestant, is sadly eliminated. The fourth contestant, Jesse, known from Season 4, is familiar to fans who recently watched the season compilation. His previous challenge ended abruptly when his brother fell on the coast, and he survived only 5 days. Determined to redeem himself, Jesse aims to showcase his skills in this competition. He starts by building a permanent shelter while his energy levels are high, not wanting to work in 40 degrees Celsius weather. By finishing the cabin early, he hopes to start enjoying it sooner. By day 4, 9 contestants remain. Contestant number 5, Larry, catches a squirrel today. As the runner-up from Season 2, who previously survived 64 days on Vancouver Island and was eliminated due to hunger, Larry returns with a full beard and lessons learned. Missing out on the $500,000 prize, he aims to surpass his previous record and win this time. Today he sets numerous traps for a stable food supply, as Mongolia's rodent population is plentiful compared to Vancouver Island. Contestant number 6, Dave, is well known as a tough competitor from Season 3. No one should underestimate him. Always smiling, he is an experienced outdoor survival coach with over 20 years in the field. Although he only survived 3 days in Season 3 due to a mandatory medical disqualification, he had over 30 smoked fish left. His plan to use his supplies to get through the winter was thwarted by the medical disqualification. At his exit, he had lost 37% of his original body weight, a staggering amount. Remarkably, even in hunger, he wouldn't touch his stored food, controlling his desires and planning his food storage for the entire winter. Today, armed with his hunting bow, he sets out to find prey. Hunting is second nature to him, and with his skills, any game in sight is likely hit. Today, he bags a grouse, a rare treat to enjoy chicken soup in the wild. This season, he is determined to prioritize his physical health to avoid another forced withdrawal due to medical issues. 7th contestant, Brad. Brad, a young man, was a contestant in the 4th season, but survived only 1 day. His elimination was forced when his brother chose to withdraw from the contest. He believes that his true capabilities were not showcased in the previous contest. Today, his primary goal is to set traps. He understands the difference between Mongolia and Vancouver Island. On Vancouver Island, even without successful hunting, one can find mussels by the sea. However, in Mongolia, if you cannot hunt, you are likely to be eliminated by starvation. In the early days of this season, Brad set up 50 traps around his shelter. After checking them today, his spirits plummeted. None of the traps were triggered, and the fishing lines also yielded nothing. After 2 more days, Brad still had no catch. Today marks the 7th day of the contest, and he has not eaten anything except drinking water. Lacking hunting experience, he faced immediate difficulties and, unable to bear the hunger, chose to withdraw. Without food and lacking hunting skills, he had no choice but to leave the contest. Brad, the 7th contestant, was eliminated. 8th contestant, Britt. Britt, an African-American man, was a contestant in the 3rd season and survived 35 days in the wilderness. He withdrew due to food shortages as winter approached. Mongolia, compared to Patagonia, felt more like home to him. He deeply values this competition and set a personal goal not to withdraw unless forced. There are many grasshoppers here, and knowing from the eastern countries about roasted grasshopper as a delicacy, he did not pass up the chance to consume this quality protein. He would not even overlook cockroaches in this competition, not wanting to revert to eating grass. This afternoon he tried using grasshoppers for fishing and was surprised by the effectiveness. The local fish recipe includes shrimp, and he soon caught 3 fish. He ate one for dinner and decided to store the rest in a water pit by the shore. However, he took no protective measures for the small water pit, not even covering it with branches due to lack of time. By the next morning, as expected, the fish in the water pit were gone. Britt then realized that there are many carnivorous animals in the wild, and his unprotected water pit was like a buffet table, leading to the wasteful loss of 2 fish. The contest has reached its 7th day. 9th contestant, Brooke. Brooke, a female contestant, is well remembered by anyone who watched the 4th season. Her individual skills are very strong, surpassing many men in manual abilities. In the 4th season, she survived 49 days with her husband before being eliminated due to hunger. As a female contestant, having a sturdy shelter in the wilderness is crucial, and she will spend the early days building her shelter. Randy, the 10th and final contestant this season, finally appeared. His muscular build is a testament to his physical strength. In the 2nd season, he was the only contestant who survived without relying on fire-making tools. He lasted 21 days before withdrawing due to missing his family. Despite his shorter survival time, one should not underestimate him. At the start of the 2nd season, he lost his fire striker due to negligence and managed to survive over 20 days on Vancouver Island using friction fire, despite the 100% humidity. His skill is evident from the log cabin he built this season. Randy works as an outdoor survival instructor and has the best physical condition among the contestants. His current priority is to build a sturdy log cabin. Once it's completed, surviving in the wild will be like being in his own backyard. It's afternoon, and Randy is ready to go fishing. In Mongolia, with bears and wolves around, he needs to be extra cautious. Fortunately, the rivers here are rich in resources, and fishing in deep water areas almost guarantees a catch. He plans to start smoking fish once the cabin is complete. Nicole, contestant number 2, woke up today to expand her shelter. She discovered many wild onions near her camp. With careful observation, she found more edible wild plants, giving her an advantage in food sources. However, as the weather changed, Nicole, who suffers from multiple sclerosis, faced weakness and dizziness. She struggled back to camp, frightened by her vulnerability. Her condition requires long-term herbal treatment. Staying was unsafe. Even getting up to drink water was difficult for her. She tearfully chose to withdraw from the competition. The production team and rescue personnel quickly arrived, carried her on a stretcher to a vehicle, and rushed her to the nearest airport for medical treatment. It's hard to imagine the desperation of experiencing a sudden illness in the wilderness. Nicole, the 2nd contestant, was eliminated. Contestant number 3, Jesse, celebrated today, marking 7 days of survival in the wilderness and setting a new personal record. Without his brother in this competition, he is determined to demonstrate his capabilities. However, remembering his brother's accidental fall last season, Jesse remained extra cautious while working. Today, while collecting garlic shoots outside his shelter, he spotted a snake directly in front of him. Fortunately, his cautiousness paid off as he was prepared while walking. Jesse swiftly used his bow and arrow from a close distance, killing the snake with one shot. He cut off the snake's head, and the rest of it became his lunch. Cleaning the snake was straightforward, simply gutting and skinning it. After a simple cooking process, Jessie marveled at the taste, noting it was almost like chicken, though the bones were plentiful and the meat sparse. Lucky Jessie struck again the next day, catching a grouse, which provided delicious fatty chicken meat. While cleaning it, he couldn't help but marvel, planning not to waste even the organs. Contestant number 1, Sam, not being near the sea, opted not to choose fishing line and hooks. Instead, he fashioned a fish hook out of wire and used unraveled rope as fishing line. Despite his efforts with this makeshift fishing gear, it was difficult to catch any fish. Sam spent a morning by the river without success, returning to camp to rely on his proven method, setting mouse traps. During the first season, Sam caught many mice, providing substantial protein despite their small size. The next day, eager to check the traps, he found no mice but caught a small bird instead. Opting to stew the tiny bird, he found the soup more filling than roasting would have been. Even though the meat was hardly visible, the soup provided plenty of protein. By day 11, contestant number 9, Brooke, struggled with the cold weather. The smoke from the fireplace inside her shelter made it uncomfortable. Today, she planned to create a ventilation pipe using birch bark. After setting up the pipe, she added a support stand for the base. With the smoke vent and ground pipe in place, dark storm clouds approached, signaling an imminent storm. The contestants were understandably nervous as the storm brought lightning. None had completed building a cabin. They were still in makeshift shelters, raising concerns about their ability to withstand the rain. As the storm enveloped them, the fierce lightning and rain tested the quality of their shelters. On day 12, contestant number 6, Dave, after experiencing the extreme weather of the previous night, took measures to eliminate any trees that could threaten his camp. Strong winds might topple these trees at night, and if they fell on his camp, the consequences could be dire. Working as hard as him was a woodpecker nearby. Although Dave noticed the woodpecker, his target was not the bird, but a nearby tree. He drew his bow and arrow, successfully hitting a squirrel. In his view, squirrel meat was much more abundant than that of the woodpecker, and in the wild, he needed food with more fat. After processing the squirrel, he returned to camp to prepare a meal. He used the squirrel's organs to make soup and chose to roast its skeleton and meat. 1 ingredient, 2 dishes. Contestant number 10, Randy, had also experienced the power of a heavy rainstorm and decided to move into his wooden cabin today. This sturdy cabin would provide him with enough security. Although many steps remained unfinished, he no longer wanted to face another storm like last night. Today, he needed to arrange the tarpaulin properly and fill the gaps in the cabin with branches, as well as complete the most challenging task, building the cabin's fireplace. To perfect the stove, Randy collected a lot of clay from the river. This not only protected the cabin, but also strengthened the fireplace. He filled the spaces between the stones and on their surfaces with clay, completing an attractive fireplace. Contestant number 8, Britt, recently caught a toad by the river. He thought of eating it like a bullfrog, but when he held it, the toad secreted an orange liquid. To avoid food poisoning, he chose not to eat it. Today, Britt planned to hunt by the river. To avoid entering the water, he used a long rope tied to the end of his bow and arrow. If he hit a duck or similar prey, he could simply pull the rope to retrieve it. As he was crouching by the river, he suddenly saw a deer crossing the river. Unfortunately, he missed his prey, but today's experience made him regret not being fully prepared. He had never expected to encounter large prey. If he had caught the deer, he would not have to worry about food for at least a month. It seems his usual hunting methods needed some adjustments. As he was packing up his gear, he noticed a squirrel near his shelter. However, Britt's aim was still poor. He missed the target even at close range. This reflected the richness of his geographical location. Contestant number 5, Larry, unusually decided to try fishing today. Throughout this season, his food had mostly been small animals like mice and squirrels, but with no catches in recent days, he had to try fishing. Luckily for beginner Larry, he caught a fish as thick as his arm, which made him very happy. He should try fishing more often. Such a big fish could provide as much protein as several mice. On day 20, contestant number 8, Britt, caught a lot of grasshoppers. In the morning, he tried fishing, and it turned out that grasshoppers were very effective as bait in the wild. Britt used up all his grasshoppers in 2 hours, catching a total of 9 cold-water carnivorous fish. The irresistible lure of grasshoppers made this a bountiful catch, boosting his confidence in the competition. Contestant number 9, Brooke, tried fishing today using homemade lures and the lure fishing technique. However, the fish were not interested. It seems genuine bait works better than artificial ones. During this season in Mongolia, there are many grasshoppers, but Brooke did not consider using live bait. Contestant number 4, Jesse, hasn't eaten solid food in 5 days. He has been eating a novel food source, birch tree bark. By scraping off the outer aged layers and using the fresh inner bark, he fills his stomach, though it's not very nutritious. Since discovering this easy-to-obtain food, Jesse has rarely gone hunting. He even dries the bark to eat as a snack. Birch bark provides only carbohydrates and amino acids, not proteins or fats. Long-term consumption can lead to bloating and severe constipation because it contains cellulose, which humans cannot digest. Knowing all this, Jesse still continued with the bark. He picked up a pebble from the river, crushed the bark into powder, hoping it would aid digestion. However, his body reached a breaking point. Jesse began to experience excruciating abdominal pain, unable to defecate for 4 days, ultimately leading him to call for help. After 24 days in the wilderness, his inactivity led to his elimination. If he had continued to hunt or fish daily, perhaps the outcome would have been different. Jesse was regrettably eliminated. Contestant number 5, Larry, has recently mastered fishing, catching fish almost daily. To ensure a balanced diet, he gathers dandelions near his campsite to eat with the fish. Today he was lucky again and caught a salmon. However, while cooking, Larry suddenly felt very dizzy, as if hit by a wild beast, possibly due to dehydration. He had been eating dandelions with fish for several days, which aid metabolism and increase the frequency of his restroom visits, but he did not drink enough water. Contestant number 1, Sam, noticed today that the trees around his shelter are changing. The leaves and grass are turning yellow, signaling the end of summer and the arrival of autumn. This prompts Sam to hurry to his cabin as the weather is getting colder. In Mongolia's winter, temperatures can drop to -40 degrees Celsius, a harsh condition for anyone outdoors. Sam's cabin is made of resin and appears fragile at first glance. He needs to ensure the branches are firmly tied. Contestant number 6, Dave, woke up happy today because with the arrival of autumn, elks are more active in searching for food. Dave plans to hunt in the canyon, determined not to repeat his unsuccessful experience in Patagonia, where he only set traps. Today, he took a proactive approach and shot his first grouse with a bow and arrow. However, the grouse was not completely dead, which overwhelmed Dave with sympathy. Despite his hunger and need for food, the cries of the animals he hunted made him deeply uncomfortable. On day 24, contestant number 5, Larry, found a mouse in his shelter upon waking. He planned to empty the cabin to find the mouse nest, but realized halfway through that this would consume a lot of energy. Not worth the calories, even if he caught and ate the mouse. At night, the noise made by the mouse kept him awake. His frustration grew as he was unable to catch or drive away the mouse, leading him to light a fire outside the shelter. In the morning, he sprayed bear repellent inside the shelter, hoping the pungent smell would deter the mouse. Contestant number 8, Britt, had another successful fishing day. His fishing skills are now expert, with his record being 9 fish in 2 hours, and today he caught 5 in 1 hour. The only limit to his catch is the number of grasshoppers he has for bait. Britt plans to try making smoked fish today, a process that involves drying out the fish meat by hanging it above the tent and using the dense smoke from the fire to remove moisture. Eating fish long-term does not provide the energy he needs, as he needs more fat. Despite being full from fish, Britt feels his strength waning and sets traps by the river using leftover fish heads as bait, hoping to catch something other than fish. Contestant number 10, Randy, is also making smoked fish today. His method is simple. He has a fireplace and just needs to place the fish at the highest point and cover the chimney. This way, when he lights a fire, the smoke can only escape through the gaps where the fish is located, effectively making smoked fish automatically. He doesn't have to worry about the dense smoke causing trouble inside the house. Today, Randy wants to change his diet and has taken his hunting bow to look for grouse. As a survival instructor, he knows where grouse like to roam in the wild. By slowing down and using his bow and arrow, he can switch today's meal to succulent chicken. So far, Randy's days have been the most relaxed and comfortable with a solid shelter and plenty of food. It seems inevitable that he will be in the competition for the championship. Contestant number 9, Brooke, is complaining about the green rain tarp she brought this time. Last season, the rain tarp was white. Although the green one can calm the mind, it also brings feelings of sadness and coldness. Being in a green environment for a long time can affect mental health. Brooke plans to take a long trip. She wants to climb the nearby hill to appreciate the beauty of the place. If she can find some berries along the way, it would be perfect. However, as she was halfway up the hill, strong winds began to blow. She had to quicken her pace and eventually reach the summit where she overlooked her beautiful shelter. But just then, dark clouds arrived with a sudden downpour over her head. To avoid being trapped on the mountain, Brooke hurried down and returned to the sad green shelter. In this shelter, thoughts easily arise, and the inner self tries to convince her to leave this dreadful place, giving many reasons to leave. Contestant number 6, Dave, is sorting out his recent emotional fluctuations in his tent tonight. He knows he has a problem with his mindset. The constant killing has made him want to retire, but for the sake of the competition and food, he must continue to hunt. Just then, he saw a mouse. He loudly warned the mouse to go away, but it seemed unafraid and directly walked into Dave's trap. Overnight, one mouse after another stubbornly headed to his trap. In the morning, Dave was very happy. The mice came to him on their own. He didn't have to kill them and still got 3 mice for breakfast. On day 28, the production team's car entered the competition site, indicating that a contestant had chosen to quit. The last to be mentioned was contestant number 9, Brooke. She had grown tired of being alone. Coupled with that green shelter and rain tarp, she was constantly self-reflecting. She missed her family and wanted to give up everything here to return to her loved ones. This competition made it clear that in Season 4, she managed to last 49 days mostly due to her husband's company and care. If it were just her alone, she might have ended much earlier. Contestant number 9, Brooke, was eliminated. Day 29 arrives with only 5 contestants left. This morning, Dave caught his 7th grouse since the start of the competition. The land is abundant with diverse game, prompting him to craft a new weapon today, an atlatl. This throwing weapon features a handle with 2 finger holes for grip. It launches projectiles like arrows using branches at the tip, which can pierce prey with force. This afternoon, Dave will continue hunting. He discovered a path ideal for ambush, formed by elk and other wildlife. Dave plans to construct a hunting stand between 2 trees, a physically demanding and risky task. However, as an outdoor instructor, Dave can execute it flawlessly. Catching an elk here would make all his effort worthwhile. Contestant number 10, Randy, went to the river to restock today. His first batch of smoked fish is ready. To avoid hunger in the winter, he needs to prepare more food. Like all animals in this season, the river fish are plentiful, allowing Randy to catch one after another, totaling 11 fish today. Contestant number 1, Sam, started his day checking his fish traps, including a funnel-style fish trap. Upon inspection, he found it filled, but was disgusted to find his right ear covered in leeches, blood-sucking creatures. Reluctantly, Sam collected the leeches and took them back to his shelter. Desiring fish, he decided to make a fishing net, though he questioned its effectiveness at this late time before winter. After setting up his net, Sam returned to camp, took out the leeches, and decided to eat the slimy creatures. He regretted not bringing fishing line and hooks, having misunderstood Mongolia as just desert grasslands. Contestant number 5, Larry, started his day by checking his traps, catching a mouse. The mouse trap proves to be a stable food source at this stage of the competition. To reduce the chance of catching unwanted fish, Larry crafted a net, spending the morning on this meticulous task, which helped temper his temperamental nature. In the afternoon, he went fishing by the river, demonstrating the effectiveness of his homemade net. Crafting his own tools in the wild boosts his confidence immensely. Contestant number 8, Britt, had a frustrating day as his usual fishing spot yielded no fish at all. Previously, he could catch over 10 fish in 2 hours here. It seems the colder weather has driven the fish to deeper waters. Without enough food for winter, Britt faces difficulties. His shore traps are empty, and his hunting skills are weak, leaving him uncertain of his next steps, especially since 99% of his diet is fish. On day 32, with only 5 contestants remaining, Britt found a small rodent in his shelter at night. He quickly used a stick to kill it, securing his evening snack. Roasting the rodent thoroughly not only kills any viruses, but also allows him to crush the bones for more protein. Contestant number 1, Sam, our mouse-trapping expert, caught a mouse with his trap tonight. As winter approaches, Sam adds a door to his shelter to prepare for the cold, right as the first snow falls, signaling the impending cold season. Contestant number 5, Larry, was especially happy today as his shelter was free from rodent noises last night. He first checked his traps around the shelter, catching a mouse in each of the first 2, providing enough calories for the day. Contestant number 10, Randy, spent his day making a chair in his shelter to pass the time and combat loneliness. Randy is skilled at hunting, building, and setting traps, but solitude is his biggest challenge. Hiking helps ease his mind, but the cold weather seems to have erased the fish, just like uncertainties in his life diminish his sense of security. Despite his strong survival skills, Randy's journey ends as loneliness overwhelms him again, leading to his withdrawal from the contest. Contestant number 6, Dave, set out on his hunting trip today. With the colder weather, fishing has become difficult, and the activity of rodents has decreased. Food is becoming increasingly scarce. Dave urgently needs to catch a large prey. Due to the distance between the hunting spot and the canyon and his shelter, he also needs to build a temporary shelter there today. Otherwise, the daily commute would drain his energy significantly. On day 35, with only 4 contestants left, contestant number 8, Britt, prepares for heavy snow by constructing a snowmobile. This slow-building transportation for snowy terrain will save a lot of energy later. The wood used must be debarked to make it smoother and reduce friction. Dave concluded today that the less body fat one has, the harder it is to fall asleep. As he loses weight, his sleep worsens. Even Dave, the hunter, has been struggling to find food recently. The cold weather causes many animals to hibernate, and river fish move to deeper waters. Finding food is becoming increasingly difficult. Today, Dave went to his hunting stand, hoping to encounter prey. However, sitting in the cold winter breeze on the tree can easily demoralize someone. After spending the entire afternoon without seeing any animals, it felt like a cold splash on his fervent heart. Dave returned to camp, boiled a pot of warm water, and went to the riverbank, admiring the beauty of the Mongolian wilderness while worrying about his health. He remembers being medically evacuated in Season 3 due to his health. Now, with the desolate Mongolian winter and prey vanishing overnight, it's hard for him to win without food. To avoid repeating past mistakes and worsening his health, Dave chose to withdraw from the competition. He is satisfied with his performance but does not want to risk another medical elimination. As the first contestant ever medically evacuated from the show, the psychological impact was significant. This proactive withdrawal is clearly better. Since food is becoming harder to find, he chose to leave on his terms. Contestant number 5, Larry, due to a food shortage, will explore the mountain across today. Although it seems to consume a lot of energy, not taking action would eventually lead to starvation and quitting the competition. Instead of waiting, he takes the initiative. He discovered a lot of wolf feces, indicating a communal living area for these animals. Larry had to change his route. Soon after, the beautiful scenery deeply moved him, making him marvel at the charm of the Mongolian wilderness. Day 40 arrives with only 3 contestants left. Contestant number 8, Britt, was shocked to find that the hot water he boiled last night had frozen overnight. The biting cold is daunting and can shatter the contestant's morale. Approaching the river, Britt sees that the shore is also frozen, quashing any hopes of fishing. In such cold, fish that don't move to deeper waters would likely freeze to death. Contestant number 1, Sam, feels frightened by today's weather. The extreme cold means he must gather more firewood. It has been a week since Sam had any protein, and even pulling up a dead tree exhausts him. However, he needs to bring the firewood back to camp for warmth. Contestant number 5, Larry, made himself a pair of snow goggles today. Snow goggles, which date back 2,000 years to the Arctic Inuit, protect one's eyes in snowy environments, preventing snow blindness caused by excessive exposure to UV rays reflected off the snow. Feeling lonely, Larry has been crafting small items to distract himself. Whenever he pauses, he thinks of his family. Mongolia, unlike Vancouver Island, has no beaches lined with clams and seaweed. Without hunting, there is no food. Now his only food source is a few mouse traps. The longer he stays in the wilderness, the more he craves his family, not just for company, but for their salvation. Overwhelmed by longing, lacking the energy to keep busy, Larry has had enough. He decides to follow his heart and return to his family, choosing to withdraw from the competition. Though it's a sad ending, every stroke of his journey is his own making, and he will not regret his decision today. On day 41, only 2 contestants remain. Day 41, Britt wakes up to find the world blanketed in heavy snow. Amidst the cold, there's a slight joy in the beautiful snowy scenery. He won't forget the fun all contestants had playing in the snow. Returning to his shelter, maintaining a warm fire inside is essential to prevent the snow from crushing his shelter. As the rooftop snow begins to melt, he must go out to gather firewood. On his way, Britt is surprised to find animal tracks. The snow covering Mongolia's wilderness also reveals the trails of traveling animals. Following these tracks, Britt sets traps at strategic spots. On the same snowy day, contestant number 1, Sam, treats himself to an ice cream and doesn't believe the snow will defeat him. Today, he's setting traps based on animal tracks, deducing their habitual paths back and forth and placing traps in the middle of these routes, which increases the likelihood of capturing them as animals tend to stick to familiar paths back to their dens. Day 43 arrives. Contestant number 1, Sam, dreamt of his children last night. He is now a father to 2 and feels immense pressure. Time flies. He was just married when the first season aired. Now providing for his family is his top priority. The cold and hunger seem trivial compared to his family's needs. He eagerly awaits his family's arrival to pick him up. Like Sam, contestant number 8, Britt, is also driven by his family. Without his marriage and child, he might have left the competition earlier. Imagining a better life for his family with the prize money $500,000 or 3.6 million yuan, he recognizes this rare opportunity and refuses to give up easily. Both contestants are enduring through sheer willpower. However, in the wilderness, perseverance alone is not enough. They need food, fire, and to suppress the urge to go home. Although the show might seem fast-paced to viewers, only they know the slow, exhausting crawl of each day. They are struggling in the snow, barely surviving on meager food, truly a testament to their grit for their families. Day 56 arrives, and with it, the crew. This breaks the deadlock for the 2 remaining contestants. One of them decides to leave the competition. As the camera focuses on Britt, he is visibly disappointed with his decision. But physically and mentally, he has reached his limit. As an accountant who neither hunts nor builds cabins, his persistence has been fueled by sheer determination. If he stayed any longer, he might break down. He hopes his family will understand. As a husband, he has given his all to the wilderness. Despite his limited abilities and not winning, he is profoundly grateful to himself for enduring until now. Today, day 56, marks the end of his journey as an accountant in an unimaginable scenario. Contestant number 8, Britt, concludes his journey, finishing as the runner-up. Day 60 has arrived, and only 1 contestant remains. Contestant Sam is the last one standing and the soon-to-be champion. One might wonder why the crew took 4 days after Britt's departure on day 56 to reach the wilderness. The delay was due to the crew fetching Sam's family, complicated by heavy snow in Mongolia and the challenging terrain. Today, Sam is scheduled for a medical checkup, a routine procedure in the wilderness to assess contestants' health and determine if they can continue in the competition. Sam, however, is not worried. He had intentionally gained a significant amount of weight before the competition, preparing by eating excessively. During an interview, Sam couldn't hold back his tears. Although he always emphasized his determination to endure for his family, he is just a regular 26-year-old man who isn't as strong as he imagined. As the camera shifts to his wife, Sydney, standing behind him, Sam turns and sees her, realizing he has won. Overwhelmed with relief, he cries like a child and excitedly babbles about his plans. He has waited long for this day, to buy a car and a house, simple dreams that the prize money from the show will fulfill. Sam is grateful to himself for not giving up and persevering to victory. No scene could match his pride at this moment. As a victor, he tours his makeshift home with his wife, marking a turning point in his life. The $500,000 prize will transform his ordinary life. In the flashy world that often distracts young people from substantial thoughts, surviving in the raw conditions of nature has simplified his perspective. The world isn't as complicated as it seems. You are who you are, living authentically without concern for others' opinions. Congratulations to Sam for winning the championship.